What's up, guys? Welcome back to the NFT Talks podcast. I'm your host, Sean, and today I have a great guest. If you're interested in XR, immersive technology, this is your guy. You need to watch this episode. His name is Allen Stevenson III, and he's going to talk about everything to do with NFTs, his intro into the NFT space to what he's doing now. He's been rubbing shoulders with Facebook, Snapchat, all these big brands, and he's going to tell us the ins and outs of what to expect in the future with XR and NFTs. So guys, make sure you stay tuned and let's help build this community. Welcome to NFT Talks. I'm back with another amazing episode with another amazing guest. I'm excited about this one because we're going to come at NFTs from another angle that I haven't really touched on so far. I've got Allen III. His background is very techy, I would say, within XR, AR, 3D, anything to do with that, which we're going to go into. This guy has got it covered. So I'm really excited to hear about what he's doing. And obviously, I know you're an NFT creator also. So I'm looking forward to this anyway. So welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me on here, Sean. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Yeah. So before we get into it, Allen, tell the audience a bit about yourself, your background, so we can understand.
Yeah, I guess for the last 3 years, I've been a specialist trainer at DreamWorks. I've been teaching a lot of our creative software for making movies and TV shows. Whether you're an animator or a surfacer or a visual designer, a modeler, all those different types of art departments. I've been training those artists at DreamWorks. And then on the free time and evenings, I've been doing a lot of freelance work, crypto artwork as well, and doing a lot of live streaming and educational content. But now I've resigned DreamWorks. I'm a full-time XR creator and a full-time XR consultant.
Okay. All right. And so tell me, that's your background in regards to what you do, but tell me your introduction to NFTs now. So how long have you been in the NFT space?
Yeah, so I guess I've been doing NFTs since this November of 2020. So that makes me an ancient person in the NFT.
Yeah, in the space.
Yeah. So since November, so that's like 6-7 months ago. I think I can't do my math all that great here, but yeah, my introduction to it was when my friend reached out to me, and she was like trying to say like she's like, you should look into this NFT thing. Yeah, I think like you're always doing artwork and design, you're putting it up on Instagram. I think people might want to collect it. And I'm like, but I didn't understand what she was talking about for the minute. And then I started to wrap my head around it. And when someone compared it to Pokemon cards, and she was like, did you ever collect Pokemon cards when you were younger? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, why did you do that? I'm like, well, like they had value. I thought I could trade them with other people. I like to collect, certain types of characters. And she said, that's what's happening right now, but with digital artwork. And so you make digital artwork. She's like, you need to be a player in this space. And I was like, whoa. So I looked into it, and I was, immediately hooked, and absolutely loved the culture and the vibe. But that was like my introduction. Her name is Lady Phoenix. Okay. The one that introduced me to crypto art.
So that's how long would you say? That's always an interesting question. How long did it take you to actually get your head around it? Because it took me a while also. Like, and I think it's a case for a lot of people entering the space to actually just to hear and understand it. I mean, how long did it take you?
It took me too long. I think she let me know way before 6 months ago, and it just didn't. The puzzle piece didn't click for me. Like I didn't understand what this was. Yes. So, so I would say it took me, I think she probably let me know almost a year ago about this, and I really didn't understand it. So it was only until I realized that like it had to do with digital artwork that made like a lot more sense to me. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. It's like you want to collect art. Got it. I don't know why that was like the last piece that made it cohesive in my mind.
I think what made it click for me is, well, I would say that things that made it stand out for me more so that I think it's going to be a thing is when big players start entering the space like NBA, Top Shots and whatnot. I thought, okay, the NBA is entering this massive market. It makes sense. People collecting. And I mean, I grew up collecting sticker books and collecting packs. I understand the whole thing about opening packs and thinking, oh yes, I've got this one, I've got that one. Yeah. So if you grew up in that era, you definitely can connect to this. And there's going to be a lot of people that are not in the space yet that are collecting. Like people collect at the end of the day, don't they? People collect things like stamps, lots of different things. So it's out there. So it's just for people to understand what it exactly is, and then obviously applying themselves to get involved, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space.
Oh, tons. I mean, once something becomes digital, it becomes very scalable. So now that collecting is now digital, it's very scalable model.
So what was your first approach on? Okay, then you've got all this talent. You're a creator, obviously. Clearly, you're a creator by heart. What's your first steps of entering and thinking, okay, I want to create an NFT? Because there's a lot of people are going to be in that position now. That was in that position. All this skill. How do I apply? What do I do? Where do I look? What was your first steps?
Wow, thanks. I guess for me, the first steps was I wanted to find out, like with a little test, could I sell a piece of digital artwork, and would somebody want it? Yes. So I started attending every Twitter conversation that pertained to crypto art. I started jumping into Clubhouse and listening in on every talk, and then started to connect with and follow and have conversations with the people that were in the space, because I didn't understand it enough yet. So I wanted to get a good feel. And whenever I had a question, I would just send it on Twitter, like publicly, and then tag somebody that I saw mentioned about it in Clubhouse, or I would tag, one of the art platforms. And in November, they weren't overhauled yet. They weren't like bombarded. So like John from Super Rare, he answered a lot of my questions, and he let me be on the platform. And I was like, okay, sweet. And then other folks from Known Origin brought me on, so I got to be an artist on there. I was like, okay, I guess I'm starting to get into these marketplaces. And then my first approach was trying to do something that people hadn't really seen, and it was to I still haven't fully solved this, but I wanted to make it so that augmented reality was the NFT, because I like digital artwork a lot, and I love the idea of collecting the digital asset. But for the most part, what I was seeing in November were JPEGs and MP4s and GIF files that people were collecting as NFTs. And it made me think, well, why does it have to be a 2D image? At the end of the day, there's so many formats: USDZ, GLTF, OBJ. There's all these different 3D formats that are just as easy to collect. So I've started to want to, make little AR experiences and tie those together with the purchase of the 2D artwork.
Okay, is this something you've already implemented, or something that you're looking to implement now?
I've implemented a tiny bit right now, but I'm looking to put it into more effect more moving forward, because there's a few pieces of tech that are missing from that equation.
Right. It's interesting you say that, Don, because I've come in contact with an artist that does. I mean, I've got no background in art, so excuse me if I word things incorrectly. But it's a very simple piece of art, just blocks of color, and they've applied augmented reality to it. You put your phone over it, and then it shows the actual image there. Is that along the lines that you're doing, or is it something more in depth? When you say augmented reality, so everyone can understand like what you mean, because augmented reality, what I take it as, what I think of first of all is Pokemon Go, or the animals when you're on Snapchat, them kind of things that I wouldn't say, but I'm sure it's a lot more in depth than that, with it, obviously with your background. So could you explain to me what kind of things would you do? What can you do? What in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, AR, so it's such a broad term. So I like to kind of break it up into like two big categories. There's world-facing AR, and that's when you place virtual objects or content out there on the world around you. So Pokemon Go is like an example of world-facing AR. It's on the world, you can see Pokemon running around.
Yeah.
And there's also screen-based AR, which is like where they put augmentations onto your face. That's like the funny filters and masks that people can wear, and like hair elements that animate, or the one that I have rocking on the screen right now, where there's like some particles that are spectacles that are my interest in the longer run is more on the world-facing AR side. So placing artwork, having virtual art galleries that people would attend a physical location, and whether that location is their bedroom or it's at a certain monument in a physical park. The future of this kind of space is geofencing. So that's when like I can go on a map and mark out like a radius, a diameter, and say, this is where my art installation is. And then when your GPS detects that you're there, and you're using your phone to scan for a certain image, then the augmented, world-facing augmented reality content would appear. And that's kind of what I want to do more of moving forward, especially as we kind of transition out of the pandemic.
Yeah, I really see that excites me straight away. Because these are things I start thinking about of how what's going to happen with NFTs. And the reason why I say NFTs because I think NFTs are going to push that technology forward. I feel that NFTs are pushing VR, AR, XR, and people are going to start using them more for more things because of NFTs. And like I said, imagine doing a pop-up store in the park. Or in a private location. You could literally set that to your fans only, and everyone goes to the private location and it's just in the space, and then everybody's walking around, whether they're walking around with the goggles on or they're walking around with their phones or the spectacles or whatnot. It's unlimited potential that you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, once it's like that, once glasses are as common as our smartphones, like AR glasses, then that changes the whole world very quickly, because then any location can be rewritten, any part of reality can be rewritten to have a new purpose, whether I want it to be a pop-up store, an art gallery, if I want it to be a game, if I want it to be a community, and you can even meet with virtual characters or real characters. Like, how fun would it be if an NFT was an AI that you get to chat with?
Wow. And then, that'd be crazy. So, when you say that, how would that work? Would they have some sort of information, or literally how would that work? What when you say AI, would it be an avatar, or what do you mean?
When I say AR, sorry, what do you mean?
AI, sorry, when you say AI, what would it be, an avatar that you would actually meet up with and that holds information, or what would it be? How could it work?
Yeah, like I guess the friendliest example I can think of is when you play games and there's an NPC that you interact with. So let's say you've ever played Grand Theft Auto and there's just a side character walking down the street. If you went and chatted with them, or in that game you stole something from them, that was like an experience that was that you could have with with an AI, a very limited AI. So imagine we have avatars that are placed around the world, but you put a bigger AI brain behind it. Instead of just using the very limited AI in our games from like the early 2000s, there's an AI called GPT-3, definitely worth a read or look into. That thing is a very sophisticated chatbot, so sophisticated that when you talk to it, it's one of the very few AI that has what appears to be like common sense when it talks. It knows things, it remembers things, it can learn very quickly. And so imagine you're walking around and maybe someone has access to an avatar that is enhanced with a very sophisticated GPT brain. You're wearing your AR glasses, you walk up, you see the character, they interact with you, you talk with them, you get new insight about the world, and then you're off on your merry way.
I mean, I can imagine that you could. So let me put a concept over to yourself. Let's say that if everybody had an AI, some kind of avatar that they spoke to every day, would that AI character take on their personality potentially? So then, let's say you've been speaking to this character for the last 10 years of your life. They're going to know a lot about yourself over conversation and whatnot. And if you're just, I mean, you could have conversation talking about technology, your ideas and whatnot, and they're going to be able to relay that, and you could sell that as an NFT when you pass away or towards the end. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Would that work, you think?
Yeah, I do think it would work that way. It's kind of like I think I just saw Google. They're being very gentle with how they explain this, but
Yeah.
I think Google's doing something where when you pass on, you can opt into this, but you can basically, like, all the data that Google has about you for the most part can be shared with somebody else when you pass. They have some like feature like that. So whether that's access to your emails or, photos archived. So imagine, like, if you had a long conversation every week with this AI and you're about to pass, but this AI knows a lot about you. If future people wanted to know about you, they could chat with the AI that knows you best.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's almost like having a vault that keeps all your thoughts in there and so on. And with all the talks of, and obviously, so have you seen it with the Acon, the NFT DNA? It's tapping into that kind of into that kind of field, isn't it? So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 years that is the thing, or maybe 5 years, the way technology is growing on that fast.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple like companies right now that are doing stuff. So are you familiar with Unreal Engine?
Yes, gaming, yeah.
So they just bought a company and then made it a new product within Unreal, and it's called MetaHuman.
Oh yeah, I've been onto it. I was a part of the trial. I think they look ridiculously real, like actual humans. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine you made a MetaHuman, I made a MetaHuman, and then instead of just like, fully rigged character, for those that are listening that don't know, it's a fully rigged, hyper realistic character, but it works all in real time, meaning, in camera, in game, all those real like hair simulations and facial performances and body movement, all that is happening and being calculated at the same frame that you're watching it on. So it's not a leap. It's not too far of a technology leap to just put a chatbot behind it, like a sophisticated one, and have that, drive narrative. So I mentioned GPT-3 before, but just to kind of bring it home again, they trained it on a lot of data of papers that Einstein wrote, as well as any like white papers and articles, anything that he'd written. And they asked GPT-3 to answer questions as if they were Einstein with that knowledge, that tone. And people could like chat with Einstein, but it was like, a text bot. But just imagine how easy that is to take that same small AI model and pipe it through a MetaHuman's character.
Yeah.
And then put that MetaHuman's character in front of you with AR glasses and then tie it to a location. Like my whole thing is studying the convergence of technologies is where you see the future. So when you converge AI and AR and glasses and geo and GPS, you get that world that we're entering. All those things exist in a silo right now, but those are all they're definitely coming together. And then when they do, it's going to create, like what you were saying, a whole lot of opportunity in the metaverse. All the stories you can tell, all the experiences that can be had. And just to kind of relate it back to NFTs, what is Einstein's avatar wearing?
Yeah. Virtual clothing, like digital fashion, which is going to be, to my thinking, is going to be the next big thing, because as we get into this world with avatars, we already got avatars and with skins and gaming and whatnot.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm really excited for all of those technologies. The digital fashion, it's gonna be pretty fun. I mean, it's already happening. So there's a few companies that are now selling virtual fashion as a completely sustainable option for influencers. So instead of buying clothes, you can send them a photograph of you, and then they'll 3D model and render fabric and cloth onto you off of an item that you purchase, very much like an NFT. And then with the metaverse, I think there's going to be, my guess is probably going to be 6 main metaverses that people spend a lot of their time in, and then hundreds of tiny ones.
Yeah, almost like little rooms, little communities.
Yeah, so like exactly like little communities. So I actually think of Instagram as a metaverse right now that we spend a lot of time. It's a virtual space. Everyone's like in this rectangular fashion, this device, and we're looking at digital likes and different assets in there. We care about the NFTs of the check mark on a profile, all these kind of things. Like, that's already a metaverse to me. So is YouTube, so is TikTok, so is Reddit, so I always think of these as metaverses. They're like, virtual environments that we have communities in. But what I think is going to happen is, when it comes to the AR and VR, I think there's probably going to be, my guess is about 6 of them, 6 main metaverses that are like the big standards, and there'll be rules and like legislation and like censorship in those 6 main ones. And then to combat that, there'll be hundreds of other smaller metaverses that will have tight-knit niche communities that have different rules and standards for how they overlay content on the world around.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, anybody that's listening to this, it might be thinking, I haven't got a clue, or I don't think this is going to happen. Just like you pointed out, this is already happening. We're living in these spaces through our phones. We share all our information through our social media. It's just the next step. It's just the technology evolving. And obviously with the pandemic and the way people connect these days now, we already are connecting virtually. We don't need to be in the same room in different countries, and we're talking. And instead, maybe in the next 5 years, we'll say, look, I've got a property in Decentraland, and I'll give you the location, and then you'd meet me, and you'd figure out before you come, you'd think, okay, what am I going to wear? And that you'd have your NFT clothing, and you'll think, I'm going to wear this t-shirt. And so, that's it. And then you might, and then along with even like, you still can have, with NFTs, it gives you that, because with digital scarcity, it gives you that exclusiveness. So you still can have luxury items that are going to be limited, like your trainers. So I can't wait for Nike with Crypto Kicks, and when they bring out their project, like, it's going to open so many doors, and it is going to be the future. And whether you like it or not, you will be a part of it, or you stay out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going to happen. I mean, it's unfolding right now. I mean, for the skeptics that might be hearing this, all I got to say to them is just wait.
Talk to me about you obviously got a lot of interaction with. I've seen that you had an interview with like Facebook headquarters the other day, and I'm sure you like in rubbing shoulders with a lot of these people within these high places, or tech, revolving around tech. Are they looking to NFTs? Are they talking about NFTs?
Yeah, great question. So yes, they are.
Yeah.
I think they're still trying to find the proper way to integrate them, but
yeah,
they love the concepts and the philosophy of NFTs, because for them it actually helps their business model. So if people are finding value in virtual community and social currency, then that's like completely aligned with a social media company's larger narrative. So there's I've had some like early access to a VR world that Facebook has built, called Horizon, and it's Facebook Horizon. It's an attempt by Facebook. It's not open yet to the world, but it will be soon. And I was talking about those metaverses and people making worlds and making some exclusive. In Horizon, you can do that. You can code real games and experiences that are fully, it works in the Oculus Quest, so you're in full VR.
Yeah.
And you can travel, and they have doorways that people can open that are portals that will teleport you from the lobby to different worlds that are built by the users.
Okay.
And you can put stuff in those worlds. It's kind of like Decentraland, honestly. Yeah. Very similar, but if Decentraland was in VR and if it was less buggy.
Okay. All right then.
So it's like, yeah, so that's a real thing. I've been playing in it so far a little bit, and you can 3D model in the in there and put the sculptures up in your space. Wow. Yeah. It's limited though. It's not like ZBrush, it's not like Cinema 4D or Blender, these really powerful 3D programs to do stuff. But they have a tool set of stuff, and I've been to a few worlds. For example, one kid that was in there, I think he used his parents' account, and he built a samurai themed world where he made these large samurai structures that were like holding swords, and they have different powers. If you touch the sword, it would change gravity for the whole world that the kid built. And he was showing me his little metaverse. He showed me like how he built it, and he was just telling me about, like where the structures are, and it's beautiful. It was like it was like kind of walking through an NFT,
Yeah.
And I think some of the rooms are private, some of them are public. So right there is that exclusivity bit. I could imagine a situation where there's going to be a big event held in Facebook Horizon, and it's invite only, or you need a password, or we're just going to check your wallet and see if you have a certain token in there that everyone who's invited is given a token. Then you can enter this one-of-a-kind virtual concert or experience. So yeah, Facebook's like, Facebook is very, very serious about it. They're like to a point where like they're designing the infrastructure and the tools for creators right now so that can be a thing in VR. That's their whole VR side. And then Facebook's AR side is also doing the same thing. They just introduced connected lenses, or connected AR filters, so that you can pass certain data from one AR person to another person's like filter. And it's kind of hard to explain that one now.
All right then. So it's okay. We won't, if you can't explain it that well, then we won't even get into that, because you'll probably confuse me too. But basically, long story short, Facebook are looking into NFTs, and they're taking it seriously, and they're putting the infrastructure in place to start doing these things. And another thing for NFTs, what it allows, I feel, is that it's a creator's world. I think there's going to be a shift in finance, and the power is going to go to people that can create, where that hasn't. I mean, when I grew up, so I'm going to probably tell my age a little bit, but being a creator was like, okay, then you'd be a small part of the company, whereas the creators are creating the companies, these big companies now, and they are the founders. And people with your kind of skills, there's not, I mean, you probably tell different, but it's hard to find people with experience and your kind of skills. Tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? Is there lots of people out there like yourself into this space, or would you say that it's rare?
It's a little bit more rare because we've always been told that we were going to be starving artists our whole lives. And now the tables have turned.
Pretty much.
And you can now make a living with art. And they're like, what? Hey, that's not the way this is supposed to work,
Tell me the next. Okay, we talked a bit about digital fashion, art. What do you think is the next big thing in the NFT space? In regards to an industry, what industry you feel that this is really going to disrupt, or it could be something we already spoke about?
Sure. I think one industry it's going to really disrupt. Well, it is, you kind of already mentioned it. It is fashion. Yeah. So that one for me is very clear, because like what I'm thinking is it's going to be where you buy an NFT, and that's proof of ownership of a virtual garment. That's something that you can wear on your face, body, or something. And it has a beautiful art piece. You can put that art piece on display, but the person who also collects the art piece gets a scannable item, a QR code, an image, that when they scan it with their device, they can wear the thing they collected through an AR filter like Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok eventually. And so you'll be able to wear the garment that you purchased, and you'll be able to take your own photos with it, model with it, flex with it, and then share that to your social channels. So that I feel like that's going to be a pretty easy next step, because there's already a pretty wide use of filters, and they're becoming very ubiquitous to social media. So I think if that keeps happening, people are going to want to stand out more than others. So they might want to have the Louis Vuitton garment that's only Louis Vuitton's virtual fashion week or something, where they're going to have like 5 filters that are, only 10 of them will exist, and only 10 people could wear them at a time or something like that's going to happen. But I guess maybe more in the median is products. I feel like are going to be more virtual. There was a conference that happened not last week, the week before, called the WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference for Apple.
Okay.
They announced a new augmented reality feature they're adding to Apple computers called object capture. And the thing is going to let people take photos with their iPhone of objects, and it will create a perfectly replicated 3D model of that thing. And this is now a new feature that Mac computers are going to be able to have, and iPhone users are going to be able to take the pictures. So I think in the end, Apple will be one of those big 6 metaverses that I was mentioning earlier. I think they'll be one of them because their level of infrastructure building right now is absurd. They're laying down, like, so you think of, like, before New York City was New York City, it was just like a land mass by water. So I feel like what Apple's doing is like preparing the soil, building all the electric connections, the power grid, the water management, the gas management, all that's being built into the land right now before New York City gets built. That's my metaphor for what Apple's doing with AR and metaverses.
Wow. Okay, so they're really doing their groundwork. They're really doing their groundwork in regards to planning. So how long do you think it's before this starts to come to life into the mainstream? Would you say it's 10 years, 20 years, or how soon would you say?
I would say 5 for Apple. I mean, like, next 5 years, because they're making, Reality Kit's been around for like about 4 years, and it's already, leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. So I don't think it'll take them another 4 years to get this into the consumer hands. I guess what will change it though is it really depends on once the cost of a headset comes down to about the cost of the phone. That's kind of what I'll use to measure how valuable the metaverses are going to be, is when it's like that. I mean, because right now it's still not the best interface to be using your phone to like scan stuff. That's fun for now, but that's not ideal. And then what we're doing right here through computer virtually, this is also close. People are pretty familiar with gaming, so like they're behind PCs, they're behind TV screens, or they're behind mobile devices. So I don't feel like it's that far of a stretch for folks that are already familiar with game culture to get into metaverses. But to get like an accountant, who's working in some legal company, to get value out of the metaverse, like, it needs to be so accessible and clear. Like, it can't just be, because right now it's niche and hard to get into. So it's not taken off yet. But every month there's like a new update, and as the space changes. So I'm hopeful for it. But I would say about 5 years before this is a lot more. So
okay,
2026.
All right,
chat about it.
We'll see. Hopefully, I mean, like, these are things that I'm excited about. I think it's going to be a bit of pushback from mainstream because people don't like change. So as usual, people are going to be left behind, and some people are going to be early adopters, and they're the people who are going to flourish and make a living out of it. Because I never forget. I mean, you probably heard of Second Life.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember I was working at an advertising agency many years ago, and they came in, and never forget the half an hour kind of pitch. They were talking about obviously what they were going to do and so on. And I always thought is that people are going to have 2 careers, one in the real world, and as gaming, you can be a very good footballer, like you got that first player, or you can be a very good Formula One driver you can be the Lewis Hamilton of the F1 of gaming, and you're going to be very big in that world. But when you come out of that world into the real world, you're just a normal guy. And that's an NFT is kind of like allowing you to create an ecosystem within this game, in these games and in these worlds. So it's already transferring, and with crypto and everything going on, everything's built off community. So it's always going to work because crypto works well because it's communities, people believe in crypto coins or cryptocurrencies, or obviously things like NFTs. So I'm excited, and I'm glad that I had a conversation with you that kind of give me a bit of reality, as in like you're actually in the space within the tech side, actually talking to these guys, actually doing it. So it is around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to hear from yourself, Don, is coming towards the end, is just from an artist perspective, what advice would you give to people entering the space? I mean, I'm sure that there would have been things that you may have made mistakes, you may have not made mistakes. What advice would you give to somebody entering the space? Do's and don'ts. Let's start with the do's.
Sure. So if you're trying to, so is it like to get into AR and NFTs
and not only start to AR, just into NFTs, just into NFTs in general. Whether it's just the beginning start stage, what advice would you give to somebody?
Yeah, the advice I would give for folks that are trying to get into NFTs right now is do something different than what you see out there, because there's a lot of similar stuff happening right now.
Yeah.
So to give you an example of something that like very specific you could do is right now there seems to be a lot of value when someone has a physical art piece that you get in exchange for the digital art piece, which is kind of weird because that's like a baby step. You know, it's like instead of going fully virtual, it's this virtual physical.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of luck with that right now. So if you're an artist and you have physical things that you can make or print, I've noticed it's added a lot more value to collectors if you're like, I will ship you the physical thing because you purchased it. And they're like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Like, even though it's like, what, you know, but so that's one thing. Another one is try to work with people who own their likeness. If you're going to collaborate with people, I ran into some trouble. I did some projects with a large record label, and I learned too late into the project that the artist I was working with did not actually own their likeness, and this was a nightmare for me. So what I mean by that is likeness. A lot of contracts that that famous people sign includes likeness. So their name, their face, their image, their sound, their presentation becomes IP, intellectual property of a corporation when they sign. And if you're going to collaborate with someone larger, just triple check that they own their likeness before you do this, because otherwise, when you go to collaborate, you're going to have to be splitting the collaboration with all the people that own them, not just you and the artist.
Technically, did you do that out of being professional? Because if you create the NFT, did you mint the NFT? Because far as my knowledge is that if you mint it, there is no copyrights, or there isn't no anything like that in the NFT space at the moment. So how can they argue?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So while I could technically make the NFT, it was her audio and my visuals.
Yeah.
So this was audio from the label. This audio was owned by a large corporation.
Yes.
So if I put the audio on and put the NFT out there without her permission, while there isn't any legal grounds within the NFT space, that does not stop them from going after me as a person.
Okay. All right then.
So there's like, technically there's people are stealing all sorts of stuff. You know, people are not getting permission. They're like posting, they're taking artwork from DC Comics or Marvel and they're integrating it into their NFTs.
I'm seeing it.
I'm just going to give all those folks that are doing that right now a big heads up, big warning. All the people doing that get success from it, when it catches up, when DC Comics and Pokemon, when they catch up to this metaverse, they're going to be coming after everybody who is on record using their IP without the permission. They're slow, but they're not dumb. They're going to come after you. So right now you can get away with it, but since these NFTs are permanent things, I'm not in the space to recommend any artist getting into the space that you should be doing that. If possible, you should try to own everything you're making or get specific written permission of everything you're integrating. Otherwise, when it catches up, let's say you're doing fine, they're going to be like, all right, we're coming after all of your ERC 20 tokens where you minted without our permission. We're taking, I know no one has that right now, but
regulations. There will be regulations, won't there? There will be regulations in place. And eventually, like I was saying, with anything, when the big corporate guys get involved, they will take a big chunk. They will control a big part of this space, even if it is decentralized. So it's good for like people like yourself to get in it early, try and get your space and gain from this being an early adopter. But yeah, I do believe that exactly what you're saying is they will come back and they will use their powers to do what they need to do.
They will. DC made a letter. They wrote a letter recently that they made public about the NFTs.
All right.
It was the most threatening, like passive aggressive, threatening letter I've ever written or ever heard from them. And it was basically saying like, hey, we've noticed people really like our comics and have been doing lots of stuff with NFTs. Just to let you know, do not do this. And if you continue to do this, like basically said, you have to email this person and get permission from this entity. And if you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So so that's the don'ts. What are the? Give me some positives. What are the do's? We just scared everybody now. We're just scared of the crazy. No, but what's the do's?
Yeah. So the do's. Do collaborate with people. It's NFTs work better in community. So this is a really, really wonderful way to work with people. Do fundraise. So I found that, donating a portion of your sales to a cause that is helpful for your community is a very productive use of new technologies. It helps it make it more gentle on society if a portion of this virtual economy is going back for good. Put your passion and art, behind it. What's cool is, this is a space for you as an artist to express yourself without having a constraint of a client who's saying, this is what needs to be in this art piece. That is so freeing. So do express your creativity and your passion because it's rewarding you for doing such. Another do is be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with your art. You don't have to make up a facade. You don't have to fake anything. In terms of, it works better if you're real. If you're a real person with a real artist, with a real heart, your NFTs will sell because it's easy to see if someone's here for real or if they're here just to steal from the community.
Yeah, I definitely second that one. What you just said about be authentic, be open, let people know what you're about, share your story. As I always say to creators that contact with me, share your story because people buy into people at the end of the day, and then they will buy you art. Once they understand you, they understand whether they're supporting you or not.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's a good thing, and I think that everyone's rushing into this space and kind of just trying to make money, which is I understand. I mean, the opportunity is there, but there's a way of doing things, isn't there?
Yeah, I want to second what you said, Sean. Saying like tell your story is so important because like that's what's more authentic than your story.
That's
it's like that's your story. Like you should put it out there through your art forms. Tell your story. Collaborate, communicate, be open, and it's a really fun world, and it's just the beginning, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's it. It's true. It's very true. Lastly, last question I want to ask you, throwing it out there, top of your head, what industry is the NFT going to disrupt the most that hasn't been touched yet? Just at the top of your head, what do you think is going to disrupt? It could be something quirky, mad out there. Like what is it?
Tickets.
Okay. Yeah. And I have seen a few projects. I've seen a few projects like football teams. So I think you from soccer you would call it, but I've got the UK we call it football. Is football is you've got teams over here that are slowly introducing the NFTs into ticketing. But why do you think it's going to disrupt that so much?
Yeah, because I think NFTs are just a fundamentally better way of keeping record of like a digital receipt. A lot of receipts that are printed on paper, pretty wasteful, pretty dumb. And then, people might want to collect it like a ticket to a movie they saw that was special to them and like their friends. Or they might want to, or they remember that game they went to, that football game that they went to. Or they'll remember these things and people want to hold on to like a trinket, it's like a souvenir. I think that the ticket industry in general, or printing receipts, I think could all be turned into NFTs, like every receipt. And then if someone sees it's valuable, that I want to own that game. I want to own the ticket that Sean had the first time he had an NFT game where he went to watch the football game and they gave the tickets as NFTs. Sean's selling it now on the metaverse, and I want to own it because like that was like a slice of digital history. and I got it now. And then future Sean then has a metaverse where only people who've collected his past receipts can enter into his Discord channel. That's now a physical space in the VR world.
Yeah, that's what you just, that last part you just touched on, I think is going to be so important. I feel that, especially that people, I think like people who are proper fans, let's imagine like musicians, that if you create a musician's first NFT, and then that guy goes on to be the next big thing, and then he says, if for the first 100 NFTs I sold, if you got access to this, you get to come here with me or whatever. I'm like, it's gonna change the way we engage with everything, like celebrities and everything. Like, I think I'm excited that when I start talking about them things and you mention things, I can't wait for it to happen, or people to actually experience that.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's happening.
Yeah.
I'll end with the big 6 metaverses. I think it's Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and then one of the Chinese ones. It might be TikTok. Maybe.
Wow. Maybe. So you didn't even mention Decentraland, Sandbox, any of them guys that are now. You wouldn't say any of them are going to be the biggest ones?
Well, it's just that right now they're so niche. Like only the rare few of crypto artists understand those spaces. Yes. So I think they're either going to get, like, the developers of those are going to jump on projects. Like, I feel like Facebook would hire people from Decentraland, yes, or crypto voxels to help build out their metaverses, or they'll buy it. You know what I mean? They'll say,
pretty much, yeah. That'll probably be it. You're probably right. They'll just buy it.
They'll just buy it. That's what, like, that's kind of what Apple's done with every new technology. Like Siri was not made by Apple.
Yes. Okay.
They just bought a company that made that, and then they're like, oh, it's Apple.
Yes. Okay.
So it's like, so I don't think they're going to go away. The technology is not going to go away, but I think the brand, the label that we recognize that's behind it might change. I mean, I would love if the little guy would. I think they're in the long run. I think they're going to turn into one of the 100 little guys.
Okay. All right then.
Which is kind of depressing to say. I don't want to end on that note, but it's kind of like, that totally defeats the purpose of decentral culture. You know, decentralized power. This is like, I'm literally saying that I think 6 central powers are going to own the decentral world.
I think you're right in regards to saying that, because the end of the day is that they have the audience, the attention, they have the influence, because they've got it right now, and they're going to be able to just transfer their audience into them spaces, whereas these guys that are doing it now, just trying to reach out to everybody that they can, but it is kind of a niche. Like, me and you understand it and so on, but with the mainstream connect, we don't know. So it does make sense. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Hopefully it isn't the case.
They thrive, or are untouchable by, bigger powers that are greedy. It might be nice if, I mean, that's why I think they got a good 5 years ahead before that happens. I think those are still going to be big, important places for the next 5 years. And then after that, I think it might shift. The power might shift a little bit again.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. I know we had a few issues with the internet and whatnot, but we managed to get a good conversation. So I appreciate the time you spent and the value that you've offered. And like I said, I haven't had a guest like yourself as yet in regards to explaining tech and the amazing things that can happen. So I hope the audience of it has enjoyed it. I mean, where can everybody follow yourself? Because what we haven't mentioned, just to mention it, that you are an educator. I mean, I've been on your lives. You could spend an hour or maybe a couple hours on there explaining something that instead of going to YouTube, you're actually there answering the questions as you go along and changing things, which I think is amazing. That's your contribution to the space. So yeah, where can they find you? The best place to reach out to yourself?
Yeah, the best place is probably through Instagram. That's where I'm most responsive. and then that Instagram account is Don Allen III. So DonAllenii. That's probably the best spot to reach out.
Okay, well, I'll definitely put that in the links below. Like I said, look forward. We'll definitely have to connect again, have some further conversations as things evolve. You're very into tech, so you probably update me on a few things. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Everyone, stay listening, stay blessed.